All right. Well, it's been a long time. What has it been, like a month, 2 months, three? I don't know. Doing another video. You can see I'm very fat now. This is a reflection of why I haven't done any videos because I have lost the will to live. As usual, there is not a lot of happiness going on in my life. Um, and I guess this video is going to be about a question of maybe I'm evil. Maybe I'm evil. There was a period back in the, when was it? Mid 2000s or late, no, that was back in the, no, sorry, 2010s. It was in the 2010s, I think it started, where women started saying there's no such thing as a nice guy, really. At the time, I was like, oh, that's BS. I'm a nice guy. I think I'm a nice guy. There are nice guys out there. Women just don't want to date nice guys. But now that some time has passed and I've gotten older, maybe they're right. You know, maybe there are no nice guys. Maybe we all just suck. I mean, on some level, I'm coming to the realization that maybe I'm just not that great of a person, sadly. And it's mostly because I only have hatred for most things at this point. You know, I can't be grateful. I've said that in other videos, and I know as a you know person living a comfortable middle class life in America, despite the fact that I'm only living on the backs of my parents' work, not anything that I've done. I mean, not entirely. That's not true. I have money saved up from working my job that I was telling you about for the last couple of years, and I don't spend a lot. I'm not a spender. I don't buy. Look at what clothes I'm wearing, for crying out loud. This is very. I buy everything that's cheap. Um, I don't spend on anything that I don't have to. I've been driving the same crap car for about 10 years now, and I don't drive it that much. I don't have to spend a lot on gas because I don't drive much. I've been a hermit. I stay inside. I don't do much. Every day I wake up and mostly watch baseball on my phone, and sometimes I go for a swim. We do have a little pool outside. That's right. It's not that tiny of a pool. It's a big for a little pool. It's not like a Olympic-sized pool or anything, but it's a nice little pool. You're gonna think that makes me. I don't know. I mean, I am middle class. Don't get me. Look, there's no question about that. My dad was not a specialist doctor. He was a general practitioner, so he didn't make the kind of big money that the specialists make. I will be struggling once my parents are gone. But, you know, I should be happy, I guess, I suppose. I don't know. Looking from the outside, people will say, well, the only reason why you're unhappy is because you didn't take the opportunities, you didn't try hard enough, you didn't work hard enough, whatever. People will come up with a lot of things. I guess I'm just not happy because, in my mind anyway, I don't really have a purpose to my life. You know, I don't understand why I'm here. You know, as far as I'm concerned, God didn't give me any great skills. Um, I think He gave me some amount of perspective that the modern world doesn't want to hear for the most part, except for a small number of you who decide to watch these videos, and I can't quite understand why. Maybe it's because I'm real. I am real. I'm more real than most of the crap you see on TV, and even most of the crap you see on the YouTube. It's hard for new people to find me because YouTube pretty much promotes the fake crap. They don't promote the real crap. This is real. No frills. That's why I've never bothered with production and all this other kind of stuff because I don't want to put on a show. I just want to be real with you people. So anyway, you know, I mean, I make these videos. This doesn't give me really joy or anything. I don't know why I even make these videos. I guess because it's easy and because I like sharing my opinion. So I suppose. But no one cares enough. You people care, but you're a very small percentage of the world population. And it's not going to matter in the end. This doesn't matter, and I have no interest in, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I really have no interest in helping capitalism function. You know, I have no interest in helping to, you see where we're going here. I mean, at this point, people should see where we're going. I mean, part of the reason why I'm depressed is because this country reelected an idiot, or not an idiot, but maybe he is kind of an idiot. I don't know. Maybe he's calling him an idiot's a little reductive. He's really just kind of a scheming businessman. That's what he is. Maybe that doesn't make him an idiot, but it makes him, selfish and makes him. He's a bully. Everybody knows he's a bully. People don't care. I was bullied in school. Now there's a bully running the country. How does he think that makes me feel? Not good. And he's enriching himself and his wealthy business, types like himself. And we're all paying the price. And it's all because we're surrounded by people that are too ignorant to want to learn about anything or care enough about, I don't know. Like, I don't even care anymore. But only reason why I don't care is because everyone else is just so easily manipulated. So many of you are so easily manipulated, and we're in a bad situation here. You may not realize it, but the U.S. has been downgraded. We're in debt. They're adding to the debt by giving more tax cuts to the wealthiest people, and the same tax cuts that they shouldn't have given in the first place. They're extending those tax cuts, and I'm gonna get pushed off of Medicaid soon because they're gonna force me to get a job, and the job that I get will be supporting this bullshit system because that's what they want you to do. That's what I don't want to do. I don't want to support capitalism. I don't want to contribute to the economy. I don't want to help people. It's like people they'll make it out as if, oh well, you don't want to help your fellow man. But the reality is I don't want to help my fellow man continue to destroy the planet by living in a way that's totally oblivious to the danger that's being created by our way of life. If I lived on some commune, for say, where everybody was farming and and I was expected to pitch in that kind of natural kind of environment, then maybe I would, I'd be more willing. I'd understand the point of the work at the very least. I'd probably still be lazy. I probably still wouldn't really want to do it, but I would do it because, I would feel an obligation to support something that I could believe in, which was, a natural way of living, I guess. But I could say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. All I know is, God, in the end, has made me out to be somebody who has no real agency. Some people might say that I chose to have no agency because I chose not to work or I chose this and that, whatever. All I know is I was a sensitive child and I got made fun of a lot. And maybe I'm using that as an excuse for being lazy. Maybe I was lazy by myself. One way or the other, I'm lazy. Whether it's I don't think that laziness is something you can choose, really. I look at my cousin. He's a go-getter. Every morning he's got all this energy. He wakes up, he goes out, he does this, he does that. He can't sit around. I look at my uncle. He can't sit still. He has to be working on something. He works. He always has a project of some sort. He's naturally energetic. You can't. He would not be happy sitting around like I do for hours on end. So I just think that there's, God made me naturally the way I am, and the way I am is not somebody who, cares about anything, that wants to work hard to get anything done. I think the one thing I did want to work hard on was music, and now musicians have been made irrelevant. The AI guys are creating machines that can create music. They don't need us anymore. It's very hard to do anything original music anyway. I like to think that maybe my ideas had some amount of originality to it, but you really need like a great singer to really put yourself on the map. I'm not a great singer. I know some great singers, but they wouldn't sing to my music. They would want me to work on their music, and then I'm not really contributing anything. I'm just You know, none of my ideas come alive at that point. So why should I work hard for someone else on their music when, you know, it's just, most people that I would like. There's one person who I know who's a really good singer who I could, help, but they don't have any. I don't like their musical ideas. They're boring. I mean, they're catchy and they're kind of poppy, but it's not what I want to push forward in the world. I want to push forward something original. If they were willing to sing on my songs, then it would work for me. But it just doesn't because I don't want to write more pop songs that the world doesn't really need. I mean, people don't care anymore. So it's next to impossible to make money as a musician these days, unless you have the production machine behind you, and you've been on the Disney Channel when you were a kid. It's like they start grooming these stars from the time they're little kids, and it seems like it's hard to get any kind of a foothold unless you've had that kind of long history, and also you have to have model good looks and have a fantastic voice, and you know. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I've come to this point in life, and I just don't like most people right now. I have a group of people I go to the bar with. They're very nice people. I don't have a lot in common with them. We don't have a lot to talk about. You know, they don't think the way I think. We enjoy doing the trivia together. Sometimes we have things to talk about, but I just find myself bored trying to come up with things to talk about because I don't really have anything interesting to say, and for the most part, they don't have that much interesting to say. We just talk about things that are going on in everyday life, and it's just kind of like it's all boring to me. It means nothing, and most people don't really have a lot of interesting things to say. I mean, I don't even really have a lot of interesting things to say, but it's almost like I'm a self-hating human. We're fucking up the planet. We elected an authoritarian leader who's taking us in the wrong direction. Um, People are selfish, narcissistic. Men and women can't get along. Women aren't interested in the character that I am. That God made me this thing that women don't want. Right now I'm a thing that women don't want, and I guess people would say, oh well, you can work on yourself, this and that. Well, I'm sorry, but God didn't give me the strengths to work myself into anything that would be exciting. And I'm too old to do it now anyway. I passed the point. I thought I was supposed to do it with music, and it didn't work out. I tried, you know, and I don't really think of anything that I have inside of me that's going to offer a lot. All the things that I'm interested in, the world no longer values. I'd like to make a musical video game that taught people to play instruments, but nobody wants to learn an instrument anymore because it's worthless. You can't make any money doing it. And really, learning an instrument through a video game is not the best way to learn anyway. You really need a real teacher, and you need to be dedicated. And few people are gonna learn an instrument just because they play it on a video game. So it's just kind of like, I'm not going to be able to make a huge contribution to music. Um, no one's going to care about the songs I write. I could put them out there; they're going to be mostly ignored. And aside from that, like that's the only thing I really have a lot of passion for. Everything else that I'm kind of interested in are not things that anyone would pay me to do. So I guess I suppose the reason why I say, well, am I evil, is because for a long time I tried to be a good person, and I thought, like I said at the beginning of this, I've gone on 10 tangents. This is all over the place. But what else is there? This is my videos. I thought I was a nice guy, but I remember now it's like, if you believe in God, they say, well, God knows. I've been worried basically lately. First, I'll say I've been worried because I feel like, well, with Trump in and the world's, hurtling towards environmental destruction thanks to climate change and plastic and, coral bleaching and all these things, that are related to climate change and all the junk we've put into the environment from all the waste that we make all the time. on the plastic situation we're in. Now we're eating plastic. We're made of plastic. It's disgusting. Vast amounts of plastic in the oceans, and now they're going down to trying to dig minerals out of the bottom of the ocean, and it's just one thing after another. And we have a president that could give less of a crap about protecting any amount of nature. All he sees nature as is a tool for exploitation. So with all this stuff going on, I almost feel like, well, maybe we are approaching Armageddon here. I don't know. It's a feeling I've been, it's like it does feel like if you, most of you probably know that there's a general feeling over and over again I hear on TV. Well, times are tough, and people can't afford what they used to, and it just sounds like, especially in America, the AI is going to take over. That's the other part of it. Who knows what AI is going to mean, and how many people are going to lose their jobs, and you've got these hyper wealthy, industrialists that are gaining more and more control over us with their data collection and their surveillance and their, drones that are being operated by AI to kill people, and they try to know every last little thing about these people. Want to be gods on earth, and if they had, we're getting to a point where it might be hard to revolt because, nothing we say can be kept secret with all the devices that can track us. And, and it'd be harder and harder to actually have a rebellion. At some point, there could be total authoritarian control between AI, robots, and, all the surveillance that's going on, and all the tracking of all your activity online and in the real world with your phone. I'm starting to sound like a schizophrenic. I'm really not. This is really happening. It just feels like we're going to a bad place here. Things are on the path to getting even worse, and the wealthy and powerful seem to be more rapacious than ever. And so, as we've been approaching, I've been looking at myself and saying, well, maybe I am evil. I say maybe I am evil because I waste a lot of time doing things that are, not pushing myself forward. Not trying to resist the tide of death and destruction that I see, or at least of authoritarian control, or some combination of those things, or of AI taking over. I don't know what you can really do to resist that kind of stuff, but it's getting worse, and I feel like there's nothing I can do about it. And it seems like the only option that people want from me is to join along with the crowd of people pushing AI further, and pushing, people get paid to do bad things mostly. You don't get paid to do the good things. You don't get paid to do the things that will resist that kind of world. The money is in making that world even more insidious. And it's like, I'm even too old to think about properly getting involved in a rebellion. I'd have to train, like, military style with other people that were interested, because in order to overthrow this coming, darkness, we'd have to form an army. Like, that's what it's going to take. And like I say, with all the technology working against us, that would be hard to have any amount of success. And I don't know. I guess I just look at myself and say, I just don't have a lot of love for people right now. I'm angry at the world for turning into this. I'm angry at people for re-electing, an authoritarian, and one who doesn't care about nature. I'm angry for people for being ignorant of the problems that we're facing, and wanting us to plow onward, and only caring about how much money you make. All that everyone cares about these days is how much money you make, and people are just obsessed with their phones. And I'm not trying to say I'm not one of these people. I spend way too much time on my phone. Like I said, I've been watching baseball on my phone, or I've been wasting time making movies on this laptop right here. But it's just like, we're all just kind of capitulating to what the bigwigs want, and I feel like most of us are on a path to hell here. Like, we're making our own hell here. And I just, I just wonder if I'm gonna if this is if we are approaching something like the end. You know, I shouldn't be thinking biblically because I'm not really particularly religious, but some part of me wonders if I'm damning myself to hell by just letting the days pass and wasting time. You know, wasting time on the internet, wasting so much time on the internet, wasting time, wasting my life. You know, not getting up and it's like you know you're supposed to go out and join. People always say, oh, you know, you got to get out and join the community. You need human interaction and all that kind of thing. But as far as the part where I'm another like indicator of my point of evil here, why I may be an evil person deep down. You know, I have a hard time interacting with people who have no respect for me. I have a hard time interacting with women who don't find me attractive. I have this, like most people, I'm sure, this narcissistic tendency to want to be, you know, respected in the world, and I'm not for what I am. And the only way to be respected is to play the game that, again, is leading us to this point of no return situation. And I do, you know, I do want the interaction. I do want, you know, I know socially I'm deprived right now. I only pretty much see my parents and sometimes my cousin, and that's about it. Every now and again, well, that's once a week I see my trivia buddies. Um, but I just don't want to deal with the way people see me anymore. I'm I don't want to be a middle-aged man with no career, no prospects in the world. Even though, you know, deep down I believe it's better to be, you know, trying to abstain from taking part in the system than actively participating in it and getting, you know, the kind of respect that other people want. This is why I resent people, is because they would respect me more. I would be treated differently in my interactions with people out in the world if I was one of these, you know, entrepreneurial d-bags that's just going around trying to figure out ways to fleece people their money and use up more of the earth's resources. That's what people expect out of me. Or they expect me to, you know, there's jobs you can do that are somewhat honorable jobs, but there's not a lot. They have they do have like there's a job around here I could they have a bike pedaling to take out trash and stuff like that. And so you can pick up the trash with you connect this thing to your bike and then you get to take out the trash that way, or there, you make small deliveries and stuff like that. And it's taking, you know, at least it's taking cars off the road. But it's a tough job. I don't think I'm in shape to do it with a regular bike. I'm not even a good biker. I can't sit on a bike without my butt hurting. I bought the nicest seat. I spent all this money on, I mean, or not all this money, but I spent a decent amount. I don't know. It wasn't that much. It was probably like 30, $40 or something on what's supposed to be the most comfortable bike seat, highest rated bike seat, and I still am not comfortable on it. I need one of those, you know, those like old man four wheelers or tricycles or something like that. Anyway, so there are a few jobs you can do, but there's most of the jobs that you know, like this job actually doesn't pay that bad. The one where you're biking the stuff. I'm just so out of shape. It would take me a while to get in enough shape to do it, and then you got to do it in the rain, and you know, I'm afraid of heavy thunderstorms, and I wouldn't be able to work every day if I was to do it. And anyway, all I'm saying is there's very few options for doing work that's going to help the world, and I mean, I don't know. I guess you'd still get, you know, people would I guess respect you for doing something, especially if you're working in amongst progressives, walking or talking, walking and talking in progressive circles. That maybe people would respect you for doing a job that wasn't quite so debaggy as, you know, just working for the man. Um, but you know, I guess I'm just bitter. You know, I'm too old for young women. I got I finally realized that near the end of my job. Um, and I just, you know, I have a hard time interacting with people when I know that so many people are so caught up in this world. You know, like I went to my art group, and Somebody was saying they had a bad dream that they bought a bad house, and I was just kind of like, that's your bad dream? Yeah, that's such a lame bad dream. Like what a first world, you know, stuck up kind of dream to have. That your worst nightmare is to buy a bad house. You know, I mean, I've got weird monsters and spirits chasing me, and I've seen some giant tidal waves and stuff that's actually scary to anybody. And this person dreamt they bought a bad house. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I can't relate to people that are really embedded in society, that believe. So many people out there believe that we're on the right path, or that all this is the way things should be, that the way commerce and capitalism, the way it functions, is normal, and we should embrace it. And they embrace a lot of the new things. It's like, I can't do that. And then on the other side of it, you have the people who are naive and think that they can overturn it, and there's just not enough of them. And I have a hard time hanging out with those people too, because it's sad that they think that they can really change things, and it's pretty clear that they can't, because we just elected an authoritarian. I don't know. Just I don't. I want to. Anyway, I'm just annoyed. So in the end, I'm angry at God, because I'm stuck in this situation where God made me into a sensitive little bitch that didn't want to work, in my mind. I don't think I made myself this. I feel like this is what was ordained for me. However things played out, you could say, well, I should have been more Silverman, I should have been this, I should have been that, I should have done this, I should have done that. I am where I am. This is what it came out to be. And on some level, I have to feel like this is just always going to be who I was. You could say I should have done this, I should have done that. I didn't do it. And I don't think, the me that exists now would have done anything else. Looking back, I think I would have done it all again the same. And I'm angry that I was never a guy that I was never a guy that that anyone wanted to respect. I wasn't naturally driven. I wasn't naturally energetic. I had bodily defects. I was too sensitive. I was made to be somebody who was weak. I'm a weak person, and I don't want to be weak. I don't want to have no control over my life. And that's what I feel like is, I've been put in a position where I feel like I have no control over my life. And I feel like there wasn't a lot that I could have done differently. I felt like I really tried my hardest, and this is where I ended up. And it makes me angry, because it means that, in my mind, it means that God didn't give me the tools to succeed in a way that I could feel good about who I was. I needed some kind of outstanding skill that could push me forward. And I'm sure a lot of people, to be outstanding, you have to have rare skills. So it's like, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this feeling of feeling like they don't really have a lot to offer. I don't really feel like I have a lot to offer in the world, and I'm bitter about it, and I'm angry. And I think for a long time, I thought I was going to be a good person. I tried to be a good person because I thought that that's what God would want. I tried to do what I thought God would want. Even though I wasn't religious, I still felt like I had a relationship with God, and I wanted to, put forth an effort to do the right thing. But now that I've gotten to a point where I'm bitter about where I've ended up, I think, well, they say, that God knows your thoughts. If God's ubiquitous, He knows. So does it matter if I pretend at this point that I'm trying to be good? Have I been pretending my whole life? Deep down, I want to be the same successful D-bag that all these guys are that are destroying the planet. I don't want to destroy the planet. It'd be nice to be a successful person without destroying the planet, but I don't believe you can be Elon Musk without causing real damage. I don't think you can be Jeff Bezos without buying into this model of resource depletion and manipulation. I don't believe there's any such thing as a ethical billionaire. And I also think about God and think, how could God, who is all powerful, they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, if God has the most absolute power of all, if that phrase holds true, then God is, potentially not so great. And I feel like this whole time maybe I've been trying to live under God's rules just because I'm afraid of going to hell, and not because I actually respect Him. Or maybe because I thought I was going to, or not even so much I'm afraid of going to hell, but I lived under God's rules because I thought I would be rewarded for it. And now that I'm not being rewarded for it, I kind of say to myself, well, I think my nature is to live under some of His rules. I'm never going to kill anybody. I'm never, if I steal anything, it's all virtual things. It's not actual things. I don't know if that actually counts. I watch illegal baseball streams sometimes. That's one example of I steal a lot of different things on the internet. But nothing that's like a physical, item. Um, it's all usually just viewing material. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's stealing, I guess. I do that without a lot of guilt. I lie sometimes. In fact, just to protect myself, or to protect other people sometimes. So, yeah. I'll never commit adultery. I'll never kill anybody unless I have to. Unless they're threatening somebody I love, which is a very small percentage of people. I try to treat others the way I want to be treated, even though I don't think they deserve it for the most part. But deep down, I don't like other people that much, and I wonder if that makes me bad. Does that make me an evil person? I think I get along well with people on a person-to-person basis. If you wouldn't know it if I was talking to you, I'm very nice to everyone around me. I hold doors. I try not to be an asshole, but deep down, I think badly of most other people because they're shallow and ignorant and self-centered. Just like, for example, driving around here today and somebody has a sign, like 3 signs up, go 30 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour. Now, I've never run into a child. I've never run into a pet, as far as I remember. I have killed a couple of animals, but it was kind of out of the blue. But the time that I've killed the animals, I've killed 3 animals. I've killed a bird, I've killed a raccoon, and I killed, I think what did I say? A couple of, maybe one, or I think it was just one porcupine. I'm not sure. I feel bad about that. I didn't want to kill these things. Didn't feel like I was driving incredibly fast, but this person puts out a sign around their house saying, 30 miles an hour, drive 30 miles an hour, and I resent it. I resent that they're telling me to drive 30 miles an hour because I've never killed a child, and this person has no business telling me how fast I should go. It's up for the police to tell me how fast I should go. Why should I care if you want me to drive 30 miles per hour by your house? And this is what pisses me off. The self-centeredness of people. That they think, oh, well, it's more important that you drive 30 miles an hour past my house because my life is more important than your life. You getting to where you need to go faster is not as important as you keeping me safe by driving around 30 miles an hour. Now, I drive maybe 10 miles over what that. I want to drive 40 past that house. There's nothing wrong with driving 40 past that house. I can do it safely. I haven't run into anybody. I don't expect to run into anybody. Just like these people who put these signs out, drive like your children live here. It's like, you can go F yourself. My children don't live there. And if your children live there and you're afraid of me running into your children, well, guess what? I can drive by your house fast and not hit your children. I've never hit a child in my effing life. Why am I going to hit your children? Just like the people put baby on board on their car, like I'm going to drive safer around the car that has a baby. I don't give a F about your baby. I'm going to drive however I need to drive to get to where I'm going on time. I drive as fast as I need to go, and I usually drive safe. I don't have a extensive history of accidents, but the idea, the gall of people to think that I'm going to change how I'm living my life because you think that you're so important that you can tell me what to do, it's stuff like that. It makes me hate people, you know, and just like these parents, that they talk, that it's just like the parents that are they talk up their kids, it's like because it's like the little mini versions of you. It's like I'm just, these people that obviously have fallen over their kids when they don't deserve it, and talk up their kids like, oh, my kid's doing this, oh, my kid's doing that, blah, 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 blah. It's like, go fuck yourself. I don't give a fuck, Your kid's not so great. You think your kid's great, Kids probably. All I'm saying is that people they annoy me. Most people annoy me. Most people are so full of themselves. They're full of themselves in every way, and it's just, you know, people give you unheeded advice that you don't need. They act like it's just like there's so many people that are just obnoxious, and it's probably the majority. I dealt with the general public working at the co-op the last 2 years, and people will talk a blue streak to you, don't really care about what you have to say. They'll just go blah 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 blah. They just want someone to listen to them yap. It doesn't even matter how you respond, just that they have a warm body there to intake their, you know, the the genius words that they think are coming out of their mouth, and it's just like boring, lame, useless, not helping. The inconsiderate people who treat you like garbage because you're not earning a lot of money. The way everyone looks up to these rich douchebags, the way beautiful women look up to guys that have money without questioning their motives especially the way beautiful women, it's like, I know it's born into them. It's like they can't really help themselves a lot of time, and there are some women that don't go for that, but the majority do. And it's just, you look at the guys that women throw themselves at, and these guys are not good people. More often than not, they're bad people, and it's like to the victor goes the spoils, and it's you win by hook or by crook in our society, and it's disgusting. It all just disgusts me. I end up being sickened with everybody. Maybe I'm throwing everybody under the same bus, and maybe I'm sure it's just, the bad apples ruin it for the rest, but man, do they ruin it. It just makes me not trust people. I see people trying to take advantage of my parents, and I see scammers calling me on my phone all the time, trying to get me, trying to get my information, or trying to what's the word, fish me online. There's just so many bad actors out there, and all these people make me sick. There's just a lot of self-centered BS, and then especially like just this trend that in capitalism where it's like everybody I watch on YouTube or anybody there's just this shameless self-promotions going on. That's one of the reasons why I've never wanted to do up this channel particularly. I never wanted to charge anybody. I never put ads on it. It's like everyone's trying to sell you something all the time. Dude, check out this. Check out this. This is my thing. It's just kind of like, ugh. I'm disgusted with people, and so this hatred I'm forming in me for other people. And I'm not gonna go kill anybody. Not one of these crazy freaking a-holes with a gun. I don't even have a gun. I don't want a gun, other than to protect myself from, the insane people that are running this country and that voted for the people that are running this country. But I have this hate in me, and it's like it makes me wonder: am I evil? Is my hate for all these people, is all this hate that's coming out, it's getting stronger? It's just kind of like, does that make me evil? That I don't like my fellow man? You're supposed to forgive and forget. You're supposed to turn the other cheek if you're believing in Christianity at the very least. And I know it's a noble sentiment, but it's like I can't forgive people for being as douchebaggy as they've been, especially I think it's from my generation on, really Generation X on. I think Generation X sucked. I think my generation sucked more. I think the levels after my generation sucked at about the equal level. We're not doing anything that's laudable. I give crap to Generation Z all the time. I was watching also the reductiveness of Generation Z, where if you're white, you're bad. If you're poor, you're good. It's just like there's no thought going on here. It's become like the cause du jour, and I don't even know. In my generation, we didn't really have a cause. I was just anti-Iraq war because I knew it was stupid, and our country was going to spend billions of dollars on something that wasn't really going to help. And we didn't really get anything done on that front. It still happened. They ignored us all. So I was always pro-environment, whatever that took. Now people don't even care about the environment. The youth today are more interested about giving Palestine all of Israel than they are about the greatest ecological crisis that's facing humanity, and it threatens civilizations. It threatens the lives of the vast majority of the people on this planet. And if it's not your generation that's going to die, it'll be the next generation. Don't you care? People should care. Everyone puts the environment as a low priority level. Another reason to hate people. They don't care. There's like no awareness. People are ignorant and stupid. So I don't know. I guess I'm just saying there's all these feelings in me that's just creating all this anger and disappointment and resentment at so many people. And it's like, does that make me bad? Am I evil because of that? And am I evil because I shy away from that? I'm trying to separate myself from all that. I don't want to go out into the world where I'm judged harshly for not participating in all this stupidity, for not worshiping the golden calf. It just feels like everybody's under this spell now, and the tech world is making it worse. People are constantly buried in their phones watching these stupid Instagram reels and Facebook reels, and it's like, at least I'm not doing that. I'm still watching occasional long-form YouTube podcasts, but even that's a waste of time. Most of what I do on the internet is a waste of time. So I guess it's hard to judge people for wasting their time, but at least my stuff isn't, these short clips of, it's just like, requires no amount of thought. It's purely reactionary. There's no real deep thinking going on. It's all just dumb stuff. I feel like the material I watch is at least cerebral, even if it's not getting anything done in the world. So anyway, and then this brings me around to finally, let me just say that. So I wonder if I'm evil. And then I kind of wonder, well, if God knows that I don't like people particularly, and God knows that I'm not trying particularly to make the world a better place, because I don't really care about like volunteering to help people who suck anyway. I don't want to help people because why should I? They don't deserve it. Like, we deserve to all die. That's what I think at this point. I'm like I understand these natalists, these people that are trying to bomb the fertility clinics. Like, humans are bad. We're just not good. We're not a good life form. By now, if we were going to have it figured out, we would have had it figured out. But we're a detriment to this planet. We're putting things out of balance. We are not, and the Earth is going to take us out. We're not going to stay here the way we're living. We deserve to be wiped off the face of this earth, and it might be by our own doing. Probably be more by our own doing than by nature. Nature will react to our stupidity and wipe us out like we're nothing. And it's like, I understand people who think that we're bad. I just think deep down, we're all just evil. Or a lot of us, or most of us are evil. There's probably good people out there, but they're a very small percentage. Very small percentage of the population. And so it makes me wonder, well, am I on the highway to hell like all these other people? They always say that line about the fact that there's a stairway to heaven and a highway to hell tells you a lot about the expected traffic amounts, And I worry I'm on that highway to hell with everybody else because of my hatred and because my lack of passion and lack of understanding of meaning and my anger at God for putting me in a position where there was nothing I could do about it. Or it felt like I wasn't here for any specific reason than to be made a fool of. That's what I feel like in my life. I have a lot of maybe not a lot, but I mean, yeah, compared to the world, I do. I have a lot of comfort. I have a lot of amenities. I have a lot of resources at my disposal, and I am part of the problem. I'm not doing a lot. I could be living out in the woods. It's hard. It's harder than ever to live out in the woods because you've got to save up enough to buy a plot of land. You have to work a job in order to do that, and then once you buy the plot of land, so you're already doing bad by working the job unless you're working a perfect job. That's totally. You could be an environmental lawyer or something, I suppose, and then maybe you could earn the money that you could buy a plot of land. Then you find your people. Then you got to try to live in a commune with other people, which has been proven over and over to be a disaster. People tend to screw that up. We can't live with each other. We can't be happy. Communes fail more often than not. So then it's like, well, you either try to find people that you can make it work with, and there are some communes that stay, but they're usually a small percentage of the ones that end up successful. Um, or you work it yourself, and then it's like the life is so hard, And I was raised in a life where I was accustomed to having, just like you people, conveniences of modern technology, and it's incredibly hard. And I don't know if like I said, I'm lazy, and I don't know if I can hack living in that world where I feel I'm living true to my beliefs, and so it just makes me feel like I'm part of the evil. I'm doing whatever I can in my mind to resist it by not working, not driving, just trying to take a step back and not participating, like the old hippies, like Tim Leary used to say, turn on, tune in, turn on, drop out. I forget the order of that. Tune in, turn on, drop out. I think that's it. Turn on, tune in, drop out. It's one of those two. Anyway, I'm trying to not, to use as few resources as possible. Although I'm eating plenty, so that's not happening well. But I try not to use plastic. I try to pick against plastic, even though I'm still using a lot of plastic. As you can't. It's hard to avoid. I don't know. I'm not doing much. That's why I feel like, well, and meanwhile, it's like I'm a loser in this society too. And it's like I have comfort. I have resources at my disposal, but people look at me and they say you're a failure. I'm a classic example of failure to launch. And they make fun of you. It's really probably more TV and commercials. I'm allowing the media, or even in internet videos, I'm allowing the media to color my perception of myself as a loser. But also, I think most people do think I'm a loser. No success with women. I'm too old now. Anybody who's still sexless at my age is a loser by most standards, and certainly by the standards of biology and nature, I'm a loser. And now I've also gotten fat, and I've stopped caring about my appearance for the most part. So I'm headed heavily down the loser lane, and it's just kind of like I feel like I guess I'm just so. Despite my resources that made my life comfortable, it doesn't give me any pride. It doesn't give me any fulfillment. You know, I still feel like a piece of shit, and I'm angry. I guess I'm angry at God that this is what was. I don't know if this is what was meant for me, or if this is what I chose, or it's some combination of both. But I'm angry that this is what's happened. And I guess, for a long time, like I said, I tried to do the right thing because I thought I was going to be rewarded for it. And it's clear that I wasn't. So now I'm just like wondering, well, maybe God knows at this point, God knows that I'm angry and bitter about where I'm at. And that there's no point in me doing the right thing anymore because, there's no hiding from God your true feelings. And now I'm just feeling like, God's made this world unnecessarily painful and made life an unnecessary struggle. He didn't put me in a position where I could feel passion for something or where I could feel like I had a chance to make a real difference in the world. I'm just one of these. I'm grist for the mill. And if the earth chews humans up and spits them out for what we're doing now, then what I did in my life doesn't matter. Nobody cares. It's totally insignificant. And just that whole insignificance thing, and people say this all the time, your life is insignificant. I have a hard time living with that reality, that my life means nothing. And I'm angry at God for making me a part of a process that sucks. I'm angry at God you know, for taking all the glory. I'm not allowed to have any glory. Other people get glory, and assholes get glory in our society. Why do they get to have the glory? Why was I, who I thought was a good person, and now it's like, well, maybe I'm not a good person. Maybe that's why I don't get any glory. Maybe it's because I'm really an evil person deep down inside, and that's why God is punishing me. I'd rather believe that than believe that it's just all random and that there's absolutely nothing here. And it's just that I just didn't work hard enough, and that's just who I was, and I have to live with that. It's all so frustrating. And now I'm just sitting around waiting for God to take my parents, and for God to make me look worse and worse with age, and to have some kind of ailment or something that permanently makes my life less enjoyable, and eventually waiting for. I'm hearing my poor sister's boyfriend's dad, sorry, sister's fiance's dad has terminal cancer. And I'm hearing about it spreading to his spine and things like that. It's like, this is what I'm doing at this point. I'm waiting around for God to give me cancer that's going to spread to my spine so I can be in horrible pain and think about how much regret I have in my life. And that's the other part is like I keep reading these bits about, people's first loves, and, it's like there's all these stories about, you see on TV and all these people falling in love on TV and all these kind of things. And I feel like, why was I denied all that? Why was I denied that kind of joy? Why was I denied passion in my life? Why, not just passion, romantic passion. Why was I denied passion, for something? Why wasn't I given a skill that would give me a reason to have passion? If I had a skill that was something I could believe in, where I thought that I had something that nobody else had, then I could get into something. And I'd feel like I had a reason to live. But God never gave me any great skills. He made me very average. And the one thing He gave me was some amount of more of a deep thinker than most people. I feel like there's that. There's not much you can do with it. You can't really develop it particularly. I can make these videos and I can pontificate, but even then, it's like I'm not gonna make any philosophical discoveries that haven't been made 1,000 times. I'm just not that outstanding. I have slightly above average intelligence, but I'm no genius. And I don't really feel like there's much. I can make these videos with my little BS, boring insights that for some reason some of you like, and it doesn't mean anything. It's all just meaningless. My history on this planet will be forgotten, and I can't stand it. And so I'm just wondering, am I evil? And should I try to do the right thing anymore? I mean, I'm not. I haven't been trying to do the right thing. That's why I worry I'm going to hell. But maybe I deserve to go to hell. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's too late. I missed my chance. Maybe this is all a game, and I blew the game. I have to restart, and maybe restart as another character because this one isn't working. And I'm sad because I like the person that I am on some level. I think I deserve better than this. Most people with bad self-esteem, they hate themselves. I don't really hate myself. I just think I deserved better from the world from the beginning. I deserved good things to happen to me. I deserved great talent. I deserved to feel passionately for something. I deserved to have love. I deserved all these things, and I feel like I was made in such a way that I was sort of like I was. I had a handicap from the beginning. And there's if you watch these near-death experience videos, they say, well, some people, before they say if you believe in the reincarnation, they say, well, some people take on challenges in life because that's the real work, is to get through life with the challenges, and it's especially noble if you can do it and do it well. Well, if that is true, I'd like to believe these near-death videos because it's the only thing that gives me any hope that it's not just an endless black void or nothing. Well, not a black void, just a void of nothingness after you die, which feels like to me. The void of nothingness seems like my dad believes that, and I respect my dad's opinion immensely, and I feel like there's a lot of wishful thinking. You know, it's to me it seems like anything that's after death that we believe in seems like wishful thinking because of course we're going to want to believe that because we don't want to believe we're nothing for oblivion. So it's like I'm skeptical of anything, any idea of anything that happens at any kind of afterlife because it just feels like it's more wishful thinking than it is reality. And in reality, I've had no real supernatural experiences and nothing that suggests that there's anything more to existence than what's here, unless it's all being extremely well hidden. That's why I hope that that's what it's all just hidden and that we're not allowed to know. There's some barrier you can't cross. So if the near-death people are right and against all odds, and I chose this difficult life for myself, then I guess, maybe I'll understand better when I die. But right now, without any firm belief that I will continue to exist after I die, it just feels like this is all just a big waste of time. And I'm angry at God for making life so difficult. And it's harder for other people than it is for me. I know that. But just think about Revelation. If Revelation actually, if the end of the world does come and all this kind of fire and brimstone and why would God do that? Why would God have an end of life or end of creation myth that involved suffering by His own people, by Christians? Christians have to suffer in order. This is what I've been reading about or hearing about the Revelation lately, is that the Christians suffer as a way of triumphing. So Christians have to suffer in order for the triumph of God's kingdom or whatever. That's the idea in Christianity anyway. And it's like, why would you require a world where you needed to go through suffering? What is the value in making people suffer? And what is the value in destroying? They talk about like the God will take the heavens down, and it's like, forget. There's like the world this gets torn apart. There's lightning and death and plagues. Why would God want all this horrible stuff to happen? Why would God end reality in such a violent and uncomfortable? I'm thinking about like if things get really worse, I'm gonna have to watch someone kill my dog or watch my dog. Even just watching my dogs die without anything. It's like, why does everything have to be so gruesome and bad? And just why does there have to be so much pain and misery and suffering? God ensures that you deal with that, with plenty of that experience of sadness, and you're not guaranteed any experience of happiness. You're only guaranteed the sadness. You're only guaranteed the suffering. And it's like, why would God want us to live in a world like that? I can't understand it. God just seems like a guy like me playing. There's a game I used to play, Populous, and I had my people. There were people in blue. You could be the evil side, but I would choose the good side. So I choose the people in blue, and then there were the people in red. This is an old video game for Super Nintendo, one of the first strategy games. It's kind of like, if you've never heard of it, they made Populous more versions of it later, but this was a much more rudimentary. It's about as complicated as I'd want to get, because I never really liked Civilization and all those other games, the Age of Empires and all that stuff is too much. This is like the first very, very basic version of that. So, you were basically God with your Super Nintendo controller. And what I would do is, after a while, at some point, you'd have Armageddon, where you would call Armageddon, and then your blue people would fight the red people. And whoever won the battle at the end, you would win if you still had people left, and they would win if they still had people left. So there was this big game being played, and it's like, after a while I realized, well, probably there was a flood option. You could make a flood happen. So I'm like, maybe I'll just build everything up 2 levels. I'll flood. It'll kill most of them, and then I'll just have my armies go and knock off the rest. That always worked. It was a glitch in the game. You could always build your level twice as high, cause a flood, and then go kill the people. And it was like, even though I knew this was going to happen every time I did it, the power of knowing that I was the one who, controlled this and could guarantee a victory for myself every time, that doesn't make me a good God in this world. It makes me terrible. The fact that I would plan to destroy half of these people, and these people wearing the red, they're supposedly evil, but what makes them so evil, really? And why would, you know, when it comes to real God, like why would God create so many people and have most of them be evil and only a small percentage of them be good? It's just like, it just seems like an exercise in sadism to me. And yet everyone's so certain that God is good, and it's kind of like they say, well, you have to be grateful, you have to appreciate everything. Well, the things that I can be grateful for and appreciate, so can the assholes. They can appreciate all the same stuff that I can be appreciative of. And, you know, doesn't make them better. They get more out of it than I do and they're assholes. They get more out of it. I would get more out of it if I was an asshole like them. Maybe I am an asshole. I don't know. I'm going off in a few different ways here, but all I'm saying is that maybe God is just playing a game here, and really the only reason why I believe in God at this point and doing God's will at this point, if there is a God and you believe in Christianity at all, which I don't know if I am a Christian, but I believe there could be some kind of God. I don't really know if there is or not, but the only reason, to want to do good in the world is because I fear Him. I'm afraid I'm going to go to hell for not doing good. But that's it. It's not because I believe God is good anymore. Because if God was so good, then why would He make me suffer, and why would He make so many other people suffer? Once God kind of does you wrong personally, as He did to me, He didn't make any of my dreams come true. You could say it was my choice, whatever, but I would come back and say God made me who I was and made me react to the way I did, and some people would say I had free will and I chose this for myself, but I feel like, there was a lot of what they call free will is just stuff that's sort of a product of your environment. I feel like you're a product of your environment. I feel like this is how I was meant to come out. Most of my choices I think were dictated by my environment and not so much by anything that was in me. Also I'll say this, I wasn't so good in my early days because I remember as a little kid, I didn't have any real moral compass. It's all really my parents that I think when I was a little kid, I did kill ants with the magnifying glass. I was one of those sadistic little bastards, who would burn them. And I don't know why I thought that was funny. I look back and I think I was a monster. And I was also one of these, it's like I don't think ants are very intelligent, particularly. I don't think that, it's the worst thing in the world to kill ants. People kill ants all the time, but it's like for me to do it and get some kind of sick sadist joy out of doing it with a magnifying glass, I was bad. I choked kids when I was a bad kid in a lot of ways. I've mentioned this in other videos. I would take wads of paper towels, wet them, and toss them on the ceiling, and the janitor would have to clean it up. Eventually, he came to talk to me, and I stopped doing it. When he talked to me, he made me believe I was going to get in trouble if I kept doing it, so I stopped doing it immediately. But I think in the end, the only reason I stopped doing it was because I thought I was going to get in trouble, not because I gave a crap about the janitor. Of course, I don't think I had any understanding that the janitor had to clean it up. To me, it was just like, oh, this is a fun thing to do. You don't really have when you're so young like that, you don't really understand the consequences of your actions. And I also, got into fights with kids. I choked a kid till he threw up a little bit. Maybe I am evil. Maybe I was born to be evil. And the only reason why I'm not evil is because of my parents and being around better influences. I remember I threw a plastic bag out the window, and my dad stopped the car and said, "You're going to go pick that up." I remember that day vividly. I thought it was so funny that, oh yeah, this will just go out the window. Oh yeah, that's fun. I get to watch it fly out the window. That's what my mindset was, and it's just kind of like now I'm appalled at myself. Back then, and it makes you wonder, like, you know, is everybody like that, or is that just me? Is everybody that thoughtless when they're a child, or was I just bad? And am I paying some kind of price here for being bad deep down? And now it's like, you know, now that I wasn't rewarded for trying to do the right thing, I'm back to being that same kid again. No real morals. I don't know. Anyway, this has gone well over an hour. I guess I'm just, I'm concerned. I'm worried that God's going to punish me, and I'm really only worried about the punishment because I'm not a big fan of the world God's made, or the world or the life God's made for me particularly. I don't know. Maybe it's my fault, but I'm not a fan of it regardless, and I wish He put less roadblocks in my way. Or I wish it or the universe had put less roadblocks in my way. I wish the universe had. Some people feels like they just have everything easy. Some people are born to be lucky. I never had a family who could show me the way to being a successful, respected person, and I couldn't figure it out myself. And I don't know if it's my fault or God's fault, but all I know is we're coming to the what feels like an end here, and I'm wondering if I'm gonna go to hell for maybe either because I was born to be bad or because I've totally lost faith. Once I found out that I wasn't the star of this show, I got tired of it. And does that make me bad? Maybe. Makes me as narcissistic as all the people I hate, and that's why I'm in a bad way. And some part of me would like to kill myself, honestly, just to be like, you can't control me anymore, God. You can't put me in any kind of, no, it's no longer, I don't get to be your laughing stock anymore. I don't get to be you don't get to look at me and make fun of me and have people ridicule me and have the world tell everybody that I'm a loser, then I have no value. If I were to off myself, then it would be like it would finally be something that I chose. God didn't decide when I died, I did. Some actual control over my life exerted by me. I'm not going to do it, but I promise you I'm not going to do it. But I feel like going out by God's eventual cancer or heart attack or whatever He's got planned for me, or whatever the universe has planned for me, is like the little bitch's way. And, he'll probably send me Universal. If there is a hell, I'm probably going because I'm not a fan of this whole experience, and I think it just, or the most of the people in it, and yeah, I'm in a bad place here, and I'm wearing my red devil shirt to match. So there you go. I didn't choose that on purpose, but what do you know? Maybe this is a sign.